Welcome to Museum Archipelago. I'm Ian Elsner. Museum Archipelago is your audio guide through the landscape of museums. Each episode is never longer than 15 minutes, so let's get started. For most of human history, a person would have never seen a map or needed one to navigate a well-known environment. That's why the maps at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings books are anachronisms. Most people before a certain time wouldn't understand what they were looking at when they're looking at a map. The story of map literacy is the story of technology, and today's digital tools are the reason why map literacy is the highest it's ever been. Everything that has ever happened has happened at a time and at a place. That coordinate system, even if it's not at the forefront of a gallery, can help keep a story straight. And when designing maps in museums, we should keep in mind how humanistic the digital tools are and how helpful they can be for museum visitors. Zooming is a great example of one of these humanistic digital tools. Zooming is the primary interaction mode of a digital map. It's even more important than panning. It means that the museum can present an appropriate scale for their story, but allow visitors to play with the visual hierarchy. Most maps can benefit by showing different things at different zoom levels. At a far zoom level, a city is a dot, but at a closer zoom level, the city is a grid of streets. It also matches the way landmarks are organized. We tend to put interesting things close together. That's why we invented cities. So when we represent our world, it often makes sense to include that zooming functionality. Otherwise, the points of interest would be a mystifying cluster. And this leads into the biggest problem with maps, digital and non-digital alike. Maps don't represent audiences' own sense of geography, their own mental maps. This is a tricky problem. What feels like an important city landmark to one citizen isn't even on the radar for another. The people who use a park don't necessarily call that park by the name that appears on the map. It's important to start realizing how what we choose to put in a map serves the dominant power structure. The textbook example of this is how military maps can show a region as empty when it's actually full of people. In a museum context, we should be clear that our own mental maps of a city, of a place, what we consider to be a bad part of town, for example, should not unconsciously make its way into a map in the museum. I don't think we should be the ones making a decision about what goes in a map or not. Now, I realize this is exactly counter to what we are taught as designers. We pride ourselves on being able to determine what is necessary and what isn't. But I argue that the skill of determining what is necessary, while it's crucial for designing things that aren't of this world, like interfaces, it actually doesn't apply to representations of the world itself. Instead, museums should approach maps in the same way that online mapping services do, by making rules about what categories of landmarks appear at different zoom levels, and then letting the software take over. The map content should be populated by open source repositories like OpenStreetMaps, or commercial ones like Mapbox and Google Maps. This way, we aren't introducing our own bias into the maps. We instead include all the information in the database and rely on zooming and the rules established by the zoom levels to counter the clutter. At the closest zoom level, there's no reason not to include everything. It helps the visitor. If a nearby park can't be recognized by name, it can be recognized by the pattern of the fields and sidewalks at the closest zoom level. We all have our own mental maps. With the help of digital tools, we can make sure that our own mental maps don't make their way into a gallery. This has been Museum Archipelago. We hope you enjoyed your visit. For more information or to submit feedback, go to museumarchipelago.com or museum_go on Twitter. Next time, bring a friend.